You shouldn't feel like you're constantly battling the person that you're with for love.
In my head.
Hello everyone, today is actually Halloween. You'll be seeing this the day after Halloween, but I can't think of anything scarier than constantly thinking about the person who you once loved, who abused you, your ex. Why do we do this? What can we do to stop it? That's what I'm here to talk about today. Something that you should know about me is that I've been in a few relationships that were abusive, and I've also experienced this. I've gone through that period of trying to figure out exactly what happened and how did I get myself into this position, and why do I still have these feelings for somebody who obviously was hurting me, and why do I keep questioning if they were hurting me in the first place? It's really confusing, it's really stressful, your body is constantly feeling like it's in an alarm state, like something's about to happen to you. It's not good. The first thing that I think is critical that you know about this is that what you're feeling is normal. After you've gone through an abusive relationship with somebody that you once loved, you're experiencing these very confusing, conflicting feelings. Sometimes it's called cognitive dissonance, where you have loving feelings, which is your care system in your body towards this person who you've been with, you trusted, but you also have these fear feelings, which there's a fear system also in your body towards the same person. And when it's the same person that gives you love and fear, it's activating these two different systems at the same time. It's really confusing. We're not supposed to be loving and fearful of the same thing. I think you probably intuitively get this, that if you have an abusive ex, somebody that was harming you, it doesn't make sense to love them. But that doesn't change the fact that you did love them for some reason, and you have these feelings. So what is the possible explanation for what you're experiencing? Because you've experienced love for this person and you've gone through the abuse, but now that they're out of your life, why does it continue? Why do you continue to have these really confusing feelings? So something that you might be experiencing could be a form of trauma symptoms, and it doesn't have to go on to be full-on PTSD. We will talk about that in a second, but obviously it's stressful during a breakup, it's stressful when you've been abused, and it would be natural to experience some symptoms of trauma after a breakup. So one possibility is that you're experiencing acute stress disorder, and acute stress disorder is trauma symptoms, but they're short-lived. They only go on for about a month. If they continue past 1 month, that's when we start to call it post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but it doesn't have to get that far. Maybe you just had a hard time. Obviously, an abusive relationship is rough. It takes a toll on you, and so you're dealing with the fallout from all of that. Your body's experiencing what it's experienced, and with proper care, with seeing a therapist maybe to help you get through this, maybe supportive friends. We know that friends are a support network of people in particular that actually listens to you and validates you. That is incredibly important for helping to heal from traumatic symptoms. That may be enough to just keep it to acute stress disorder and not move you into full-blown PTSD. But there's a reason why you keep thinking about this person related to these trauma symptoms that I want to talk about. One of the symptoms of trauma, and sometimes when it comes to relationships in particular, abusive relationships, we call this trauma bonding, is having these intrusive memories that continually come back into our head. They come out of nowhere, especially with the ex. They may have this emotional charge of feeling really powerfully strong connection to this person, like you love them, coupled with this fear of the trauma. And again, they really come out of nowhere, so it's not like there's something in particular that you could be doing to stop this. It's just a result of the trauma that you've experienced, and what you can do is to work on the trauma and those feelings that you're feeling. Again, a trauma specialist would be the best person to work on this with, and that will start to make those intrusive thoughts go away. What you can do is to get away from the emotional feeling that comes up with those thoughts. So you're going to have the thoughts, they're going to come, you're going to get emotional, you're going to feel all kinds of weirdness. Try to take your mind off of the thoughts, away from them. If they come up, just observe that they're happening, observe how it makes your body feel, and just let it go. Go on to something else. Find a distraction, find something that makes you feel safe, an activity that you like to do, call a friend to talk it out, and let the symptoms, let the feeling that you're experiencing go so that whenever that intrusive thought comes up, you're not perpetuating it. You're not ruminating on it. You're not thinking about it constantly. You're not constantly thinking about your ex. You're not wondering if you should call them and what you're going to say. Let all of that go. That's in the past, and continue focusing on you and making yourself feel good right now in the present. What I'm hoping to articulate here is that just because you have these thoughts, it doesn't mean that you actually love that person. It doesn't mean that you have a special connection with them. It just means that you have an intrusive thought. An intrusive memory may be part of that, or it just may be intrusive and it's just something that pops into your head. So don't interpret that to mean that you're connected with them. Don't take that to mean that you love them. I know it can be very confusing because those loving feelings come up because you have a memory of that person, of the relationship when things were maybe better, and that's why the feeling is so intense. But it's just your system going off in relation to a traumatic memory, but it's an incorrect encoding of that memory. And what you need to do is to teach your body that it's encoded incorrectly. So whenever that memory comes up, let it neutralize, let it not be so exciting and scary and intense. It will be, but don't perpetuate it. Let it go away. Teach your body that this is not important information anymore. If this is something that you've been experiencing for a long time, and you may have other symptoms of trauma like dissociation, where you don't quite feel attached to reality, you don't feel quite attached to your body, you may blame yourself frequently for things, you may blame your ex for things. There's a constant guilt and blame pattern going on sometimes with trauma. If you have these intrusive memories, maybe you have actual flashbacks, maybe you have nightmares. This could be a sign that PTSD is starting to set in. And again, if you want to try to combat some of that, of course, go see a trauma therapist. That would be the most likely thing that would help you. But especially try to surround yourself with people who are understanding and supportive, who, when you tell them, I'm having these conflicted feelings about my ex and I don't know what I should be doing, they listen to you and they validate, yeah, that sounds really hard. I understand why you might feel that way. I understand that you were in love with this person, but at the same time, they were very painful and harmful to you. And I know that's confusing. And I know that that would be a difficult situation for anybody to deal with. You want people around who can do that, who can just be supportive, who can listen, who can help you, who maybe don't tell you which way to go, because I know sometimes people want to jump in and offer you help, and sometimes you do need that. Sometimes you need to be challenged, and there's going to be moments where you feel very weak and you want to go back to that abusive person, and it's good that a friend tells you, no, that's not a good idea. But they also need to just listen, because sometimes it's not appropriate, it's not the right time for you to hear that message. And what's most important is that they're able to attune to and listen to your needs, because you are in a vulnerable place and that's what you need. If you don't have friends or supportive people who can do that, you can look for them online. It's kind of hit or miss online because it's not a therapist that's doing it. Really, you should go in and see a therapist who specializes in trauma, somebody who understands this kind of relationship trauma, and they'll be able to help you. There's a couple more points that I want to make about PTSD and trauma. When it comes to PTSD, we have to feel like our life has been threatened, and that can happen in an abusive relationship. I don't think a lot of people realize that emotional abuse can feel threatening enough that we feel like we are unable to take care of ourselves and the person who we depend upon. We should never really be dependent in a relationship, but it does happen. If we're dependent on somebody and they're emotionally abusing us and we are isolated and withdrawn from support, we can feel like our life is in danger, and we can develop some trauma symptoms that could move on to become PTSD from that. But more often than not, something else that we've experienced is in our childhood, we had parents who didn't validate us, who were abusive towards us, who didn't teach us the emotional regulation skills that we may need in a relationship. And so when we come to these abusive relationships, we don't know how to regulate our emotions. We aren't able to think clearly because of that. And that's why we get caught into these abusive relationships. And we tend to continually repeat this pattern, seeking out more and more abusive partners, because that's kind of what we learned from our parents, is that that's how love looks. But that's not how love looks. Love is meant to be supportive. Love is meant to be an exchange. It's meant to be co-regulating each other, a give and take, and it's meant to be supporting, nurturing, and feeling positive. You shouldn't feel like you're constantly battling the person that you're with for love. Now, research hasn't come to direct conclusions, but it seems like some personality disorders can actually start to grow from childhood trauma combined with a general genetic temperament that we have. So even if it's not childhood trauma, if it's an adult attachment trauma, as it's called, which is, again, there's just another name for this kind of trauma bonding that we're talking about. We have an insecure attachment to somebody that you care for. That can lead towards a personality disorder like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. And so this may be why you're having so much difficulty with emotions and what you're thinking, and you may want to push people away, you may want to draw them in close. Again, that's part of the PTSD, that blaming other people, blaming yourself, and you're constantly fluctuating between depression and not being connected with the world, not being fully connected with your decisions. So what I really want to get at here is that if there's a problem that seems to be a pattern in your life that you've been going through for a while, you seem to keep getting into these kinds of relationships, I would strongly urge you to see a therapist who has a good understanding, especially a trauma therapist who has an understanding of these issues, who can walk you through how to deal with all of this. And I say this as somebody who believes that I had borderline personality disorder myself. I was never officially diagnosed. And then after I thought I had dealt with all of those problems on my own, found out after a relationship, I didn't deal with everything. I still had PTSD. I was still experiencing PTSD. So I was not able to figure it out on my own. And I just want to urge people out there who are hurting, who you know this is a problem that you keep experiencing. You know that you get isolated in relationships. You know that all your relationships are tumultuous. You're just back and forth. I'm not blaming you for anything, but I want to see you happy. I want to see you feeling healthy and secure and moving throughout the world with confidence. And if that's something you desire, I strongly urge you to see a therapist who understands all of this, who can get you to that place. When it comes to treating personality disorders, treating trauma, there are a lot of different ways that you can approach it. There's different therapies like dialectical behavior therapy, exposure therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is also known as EMDR, among many, many, many other things. This is why a trauma specialist is recommended, because they know how to navigate this. They know how to figure out which therapies would be beneficial for you. They can help you when things start to go wrong. You just need this extra support. And I want you to know that recovery is possible. It may take a long time. It may take years. It took me years to get over some things, but you can see improvement really quickly in yourself. And this is just my own understanding of it from what I've experienced. It's not shown in the scientific literature, but I believe in it because I experienced it. I know I threw a lot out here in this video. I just want you to know that what you're experiencing is normal. It's something that you can deal with, but you have to be proactive about it. You don't want to just wallow in what you're experiencing, because it's never good to be in these situations alone, and that's how we develop mental health problems. So get people who understand you, who can validate you, get outside help, try to see a trauma specialist who can help you with this, a trauma therapist. It's normal to feel like you can't stop thinking about an abusive ex. It's just the way that our bodies are functioning, because they're mixing up signals from the love system and the fear system, and we have to work to untangle them. So I understand, I feel for you and your struggle. I want you to know that you can get through this, you can survive, and you can move forward to live a happy and healthy life. If you'd like to learn more about improving your own mental health, head on over to youtube.com/RyanLiberty, hit subscribe. Extra special thank you to those of you who support me over on Patreon in my mission of humanizing mental health. If you'd like to become a patron, I'll leave the link down below. And if you're somebody who's been through an abusive relationship and you've had these feelings where you kept thinking about your ex, what helped you get through it? How did you distract yourself? What did you do? We need your tips. Leave those down below so we can all discuss them and learn from each other. As always, thank you for joining me out here. I'll see you around next time, everybody.